Yo, dude. I remember when Jamie lost his mind. Thought we'd add some music, man, for a change.
There we go. I had my mic muted.
Yeah, man. Well, I just, so people know, I just messaged Jamie in an absolute outrage. Because, like, I used to be like Joe. Can you see me alright?
Yeah. You're sideways, but I can see you.
Yeah, that's right. Sideways is good, man. Yeah, I used to be like Joe Rogan's biggest fan, man.
Yeah, you know,
like a long time.
I mean,
It's been a long time, Joe. Like, when did I start listening to Joe Rogan, do you reckon?
I don't...
It's been 2014 or something, 2013.
I mean, my feelings about Rogan are kind of like my feelings about Rubin, where I like the people they interview, but I'm not too invested in anything they have to say.
You tell him what you saw tonight, man. I mean, I fucking turned it off.
Well, I only saw a few moments of it because you had messaged me and you had said, check this out, he's got this guest on and he's saying all this wild stuff, and so I turned it on, and at first there's no audio, which I don't know what's going on currently, so I turn it on my phone, no audio, I go to my laptop, no audio. So it's not me, and then like you said, I rewound it, and then I got audio, and I think I was like 5 minutes into it or something, and they're loosely talking about the Native American protest viral video thing, but they were talking about, you know, journalists and the culture attitude about punching Nazis and all this sort of leftist, frivolous calls for violence. And this woman, the part I caught that was such a mind fuck was like, she's talking about the whole punch a Nazi thing, hollowing out words, and, you know, journalists should know better and adults should know better in these calls for violence. But the hollowing out of words things I thought was real interesting, because immediately after she said, I'm being called alt-right, I consider myself a centrist, and then after calling herself a centrist, she said, I'm left on this issue.
I don't know what centrist, I don't know what that is.
Centrist, realistically, and I mean, I guess I suppose I could be a hypocrite in this, but I think there's a few ways to get to these perspectives. If I were to talk to someone who knows nothing about politics, I would think the easiest way to describe my views to them would be as a centrist, because I'm very live and let live in the social sense. Like, you know, smoke weed, drugs should be decriminalized, government should be out of marriage completely, people should be free to do whatever. I don't personally condone doing whatever, but go and have at it. It's not my business, basically. Most people would consider those liberal views, when in actuality they're libertarian views. Because I think the government should be next to nothing. It should really only be concerned with national security, and then things beyond that should be handled locally. So, centrist just means you're right in the middle of right and left. You're very conservative in the small government sense, but very liberal in the personal aspect of letting people do whatever what they want with their life. But this woman says, I consider myself a centrist, you know, I'm a upper middle class Jewish woman, whatever, and then immediately goes into like we should ban all guns, I'm extremely liberal on all the social stuff, and, you know, this and that, and was then just like, okay, so why don't you just consider yourself a leftist? Like, I didn't hear her say, you know, if someone's calling themselves a centrist, I didn't hear her say anything that would make her be brought towards the middle. Like, so really weird for someone to be talking about hollowing out words and then proceeding to hollow out words.
I had, they were talking about, Alex Jones came up going, do you think he should be banned from the TV station, whatever it's called? And Joe spent 5 minutes talking about it and basically wouldn't answer. He didn't say yes or no.
Oh, I'm sure.
Pretty obvious he was hinting at no. And then she was going, yeah, well, what if you're 17 years old? Like, you can trust CNN, you can trust Fox, you can trust all these networks, and you're going to mix that up with Alex Jones? I mean, really? No, he needs to be taken off. I don't want a 17-year-old.
And you know, here's the worst thing about that.
Oh, Alex Jones will be on TV.
Here's the worst thing about that.
It's like Calvin in a way, like that Calvin going, and like the Sandy Hook.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, Alex Jones. Sandy Hook, you can't know. And I don't agree with free speech
Oh,
anymore.
man. I would have been screaming if I saw that.
It's on there. If you go on YouTube and you look at Joe Rogan clips, we could just watch that clip.
Is it already up
They've done
there?
it as a clip. So it wasn't just in the podcast. That's one of the things they're pushing for their short cut bits, you know.
Oh my god.
And
Let me
but
see if I
Jamie,
can pull that up.
Alex Jones needs to be taken off. And then Joe Rogan was like, well, you know, I look at, you know, YouTube and Facebook as being private companies, you know, and they're not really utilities. He's just going, yeah, we need government. Like, I like government. And Joe's like, yeah, well, I'm like libertarian, like liberal, but we need police, we need the fire department, we need the environment agencies, we need security, we need health care, we need government, we all need to be United States of America and be one. And it's just going, yeah, I'd feel much better, Joe, if it was like that. This is actually like you're watching the Joe Rogan podcast. You used to like be a moon landing denier. And Joe's like, yeah, not anymore, not anymore. And it's like, what changed your mind? And it's like, well, just this answer just goes, just common sense. And speaking to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson, that did it for me. It was like, that's not a reason, you fucking bellend. It'd be like, Paul, why did you fuck a kid? Jamie told me. It's like, that don't make any sense.
You know, the thing I was going to say, I'm trying to find this clip.
I'll send it to you if you want.
Yeah, if you could.
Okay.
The thing that bothers me so much about it, though, is, and I was is that, you know, at a certain age, like, I had seen when I was still voting left and, you know, politically still pretty dumb, like, I knew 9/11 was an inside job, but I didn't really understand the whole globalist aspect.
You know, I've been thinking about, did you see that Roku is...
Sorry, I put her on for a brief sec.
Yeah, no, send it to
Isn't
me.
that just a...
And you already know where that's going.
It's like, I'll tell you what it is. It's Joe Rogan's basically the US version of Russell Brand.
Yeah, that's true.
It's good socialism, you know, it's good socialism, you know, it's not as bad socialism we're talking about.
Well, and the thing I was going to say, that bothers me so much about it is when I was still voting on the left and things like that, like, I had seen, what's his name? Stephen Colbert 3 times. Like, I was a fan of his. And I probably got more of my political influencing at that point in time from people like Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart than I did from, you know, anyone like Alex Jones or anything like that. Because even Alex Jones wasn't talking about day-to-day politics and stuff like that. He was talking about big, you know, UN, globalist, RFID chips, and things like one world currency, one world government. I don't know. So, you can't really, like, if Alex Jones influences people, it's far better than either of those guys. Alright, let me play this clip real quick.
Did you see that Roku is,
and then
I think,
straight after that,
deplatformed
they go into that
InfoWars?
socialist
Yes,
thing,
instantly,
don't
like within a day. But I wanted to ask you a question before we get to that.
Okay, because I have to say, I think I support that, because I don't want, like, in an age in which people don't know, okay? Like a 15-year-old clicking through their Roku doesn't necessarily know the difference between CNN and InfoWars and the New York Times and MSNBC and whatever. And of course, some of those other ones have biases, obviously. But InfoWars promotes conspiracy theories. And do I want a 15-year-old kid stumbling into that and thinking that that information is on par, on a level with actual facts?
The problem with conspiracy theories is that some of them are real. This is the real problem. The problem is you don't know which ones are real, but some of them are real. The Gulf of Tonkin, that got us into the Vietnam War. Are you aware of that?
Okay, but Sandy Hook.
Well, okay, Sandy Hook for sure happened. A bunch of kids died, and these are horrible. These are horrible, evil conspiracies. The problem is
promoted by Alex Jones.
Yes,
How long is the
horrible.
clip to go on for age?
Without a doubt. And you know, and I saw the Media Matters clip that I'd never seen before. I saw it recently.
Which clip?
The one that shows every time he brought it up.
Oh.
I mean, it's not just one time.
Oh, I know.
Many times, and was saying it was an absolutely fake thing.
Has he ever apologized?
He's backed off of the position now, but I think
because of the lawsuit, or
I'm sure it's a lot of things. I'm sure it's the pressure. It has to be a realization that he knows that it really did happen. But there's a giant group of people out there that still believe it didn't happen, and they still confront these parents, even in court, and they call them crisis actors.
No, I know. The Times has done amazing reporting on this. Elizabeth Williamson.
It's sick. It's sick. It's twisted.
We probably shouldn't. I mean, we can go into conspiracy theories. I just don't know
to go into. It's not a bad thing to go into because it's a thing.
Okay.
But it's you know. It's
I'm curious what you think.
Dangerous
though,
ground.
What do you think of Roku taking InfoWars off?
I think we have to decide what is Twitter. What is Facebook?
Yeah.
What is YouTube? The position that most people have is these are private companies, they can make their own rules. This is just like CBS deciding that if you use, if you drunkenly yell the N-word out at a black police officer, that they don't want you as a newscaster anymore. That's a public or a private company that can make these distinctions. If you take a position, an anti-Semitic position, publicly, they can decide, look, we don't want you on the air anymore. And then there's other people that think freedom of speech in this form is so important, and that the answer to bad ideas is not stopping those ideas, it's good ideas. It's good ideas confronting those ideas, and you see it all work itself out. That's the other side of the coin. It's the other side of the argument. The argument that we should treat, whether it's Twitter or YouTube or any of these social media platforms, as a public utility, and that you should be able to distribute information. The real problem is with all of this is that it's very messy. This is a nuanced issue. There's a lot going on, because when you do decide to deplatform someone for having an awful position and spreading a false conspiracy about that, most people are going to agree with you. But the question is, does it stop there?
Exactly.
And does it move on to you are a person who believes in white nationalism? What does that mean? Well, I believe that black pride is fine, but I also believe white pride is fine. What about those people? Where do we go with them?
Right.
Then it gets slippery. And
what about the alt-right adjacent people?
Yeah, alt-right adjacent.
I totally
get it. What about
it.
people that have given the alt-right a platform? You know, are they a part of the problem now? Should we deplatform them? I mean, this is one of the things that there was a paper that someone had put together, an article. It was
this Data and Society thing?
Hilarious. Where it's like everyone.
I've had enough of that. Oh my god. You know what that just was? That was Joe Rogan doing his best at a Jordan Peterson, where he just danced around that question so well. Well, he said so much, but said nothing.
Well, he didn't say that he supported Alex Jones, which was the question.
And that's the thing, and that's why I said that, because he just went on for like 2 minutes straight explaining the issue and playing it out greatly. Oh, well, you know, what about the white supremacist people? Well, what about the people that are, you know, I'm okay with black pride, but also with white pride, and where do we draw the line, and this, and that, to the point where even she was like, yeah, you know, it could come after me, where they call us alt-right adjacent, and like, it's almost like they went full circle on it, but didn't say, then I guess Alex Jones should stay, which is the conclusion of the point he was being made, but it's like he was finding the longest route in which to make that point and play on the right side of that issue, while still not saying, well, no, of course not. Like, it's almost like
it is weird you brought up. It is like
it's
weird
wizardry.
It's like they've been to the same training camp.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Owen Benjamin would call that. That's the wizard talk. Like, that is the wizard words of playing with that issue without actually touching it or saying anything. And I'll tell you what, even this, like, them being like, Alex Jones is obsessed with Sandy Hook. Like, I forget who said it. Someone said it on a show the other day, but they said, you know, if the media didn't drop this, like, you probably would have never said that phrase in the past couple years, but they keep it relevant. Like, they keep bringing it up. It's like the thing to tack on to them, where it's like, you know, it used to be Alex Jones 9/11 truth, Alex Jones 9/11 truther, Alex Jones 9/11, you know, and now it's Alex Jones Sandy Hook, Alex Jones Sandy Hook, Alex Jones Sandy Hook. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and CNN have never done anything wrong.
Never.
They're allowed. They're like the you know, thing you should be aiming for.
I heard Donald
It's
Trump's
fucking
getting pissed on by Russian prostitutes. If the CNN said it, it must be true.
Russia. Yeah. Fucking insane. Like, Joe Rogan's got really bad recently. Did you watch the Mike Tyson one?
No.
Oh, it's fucking awful. It just kept saying how he's just going, Mike Tyson, you're the greatest all the way through. He didn't ask him anything at all. Just kept saying how great he was for 2 hours. It's just like, dude, you got Mike Tyson, there should be loads of shit you could actually ask him.
Yeah.
You could tell that it was just like, he was just too scared to even, I guess maybe Mike Tyson's got a short fuse, I don't know, but it just seemed like he was like treading on eggshells with him.
Yeah.
Which seemed weird because Mike Tyson seemed chilled as fuck.
Yeah, Mike Tyson has had an interesting past. Like, I'm pretty sure, I think there's something fucked up, or he didn't have a father, but his coach kind of took him under his wing, and like, when his coach died, that's when everything started going crazy, and you had all the bad press around him and stuff. But I mean, he's one of those people where it's like, you know, they say America loves a comeback. Like, we love seeing people fail and end up in shitty positions and then bounce back. Britney Spears would be another good example of that. The freakouts and meltdowns in the media, and then she's back on top. Like, so Mike Tyson has had one of those stories with ups and downs, so I don't know why he wouldn't ask him. There's plenty of things he could have asked. Even if they just kept the whole show about boxing and fights and different matches, and, you know, how would you prepare? Like, Joe does MMA, you would think they could at least do an interesting angle with that.
Yeah, they could have gone out right at the back and used the punch bag and stuff. Really break it down slowly what Mike Tyson's movements are and why they work like that, and talk about how he recreates some of his big knockouts, how he lined it up, how he got the shot, what he was thinking. No, none of that.
I mean, I don't know. I really, after Alex broke it down the one day where he was like, you know, the intellectual dark web, like in the 60s when you had these professors and pushing drugs in the colleges and, you know, this and that, and like, I always keep in mind like the way the mind control program seemed to have gone, where it was like hands on at one point, and then they got so good at it they could do it hands off on a massive level, And like, yeah, they need a little bit of hands-on, but they'll do that through a mainstream, widespread measure, like, you know, the psychiatry industry, where, you know, you're getting the pills from the doctors to put you in a mind state to better receive the programming. Like, I did see Alex Jones, because I watch all the comic book related material on TV and stuff, but Supergirl has been insufferable, and there are these videos going around the web that Jones picked up, and they posted one of them the one day, the feminist supercuts, and it's basically just the clips where they're like bad-mouthing men, straight men, talking about, oh, the Nazis want to make America great again, and like when you see it, like, because they might get in one or two jabs per show, sometimes they'll run with a whole angle like a gun control thing, but when you see it condensed, just like bam, 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 you realize how much programming they're seeping into these shows. Like, even in the latest one, you see that Russia has developed a Supergirl clone, so it's going to be the Russian Supergirl against the American one. Like, they're even bringing in that angle of Russia as the big bad. But they give people
and
medication.
We're all going to be saved by transhumanization. I started to get a bit freaked out when Duncan Trussell was like a big deal on that show. Because he is a blatant, full-on weird guy.
Yeah, it's the shit with the weird psychiatrists around and all of that stuff. Like, Jordan Peterson's putting out another 12 rules for life. Like, he is just on this train and he's gonna keep it going. Self-help guru Jordan Peterson says nothing about nothing.
Hey? What do you mean by nothing, eh?
I mean, that was Joe Rogan's thing. Well, it depends what you mean by deplatforming. Because, you know, Twitter and Facebook are private companies, and people say this, and other people say this, and everyone says this. I'm not saying anything, but people say, like, fuck out of here with that. Like,
it does remind me of like that 70s movement for the free LSD, and now Joe Rogan's got his kids doing DMT, smoking weed, and just not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
Not really settling down. The way he talks,
actually,
he is pretty gay.
Here's an interesting bit that kind of factors into this. My friend Dave, I was hanging out with him for his birthday, me and Brett were, and as we're in the car, he's talking to me about a stream he was watching on Twitch, where this girl, in fact, I should pull up the chat in case he's watching. This girl he was watching was talking about, like, he said they were basically doing, like, anti-drug exorcisms on people on this stream. Like, they're trying to pray the heroin addiction away or some shit. And this girl was talking about how you need to keep your third eye closed because, you know, she had a bad experience or something like that. And me and him were both saying, like, how people kind of walk into this stuff not knowing what they're doing. Like, there's a congressman that famously said, I'm against meditation, you know, it's a way to become possessed by demons or something to that extent. And then they questioned him again on it, and he just sort of doubled down. And he was like, well, you know, I'd be worried about anything that encourages you to empty yourself, because then you don't know what's going to fill in that space. Because you're not being, like, proactive. And it's very true. If you look into Crowleyism or any form of Satanism, there is a sort of New Age meditation, you know, all that stuff is sort of combined into it. You know, I work next to a place that's, you could say, run by a bunch of white witches, and they're selling crystals and meditation gongs and candles and all that sort of New Age hippie stuff. But if you don't know what you're doing, what that guy said is it can go in a very dark place. And Joe Rogan just sort of encouraging people to, you know, dive in the deep end with this stuff. Very reckless. And I mean, I heard someone say, you know, they want you taking LSD and listening to Jordan Peterson. God, that's like, oh my God, I would rather take LSD and put a drill to my brain. But, like, you'd just be confused and tormented by the end of that. But, I mean, I used to do it, and I don't know. It's fun and all that. But the idea that, you know, people use it to gain insight, and it was always escapism, I feel like, for me.
It does hit the reset button, but it doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
In a week you feel nice, fresh, and reset. You know, definitely good. But yeah, I wouldn't be advertised. Joe Rogan's just got so insane over the last couple of months for me. And I think Alex Jones is right. I think he is into something pretty fucking weird.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is just the pressure being put on him by people like Vox Day and Owen and Alex, and, you know, especially if he ever really did value his friendship with Alex and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, it's not the same, like, as far as things go, you know, it seems like there's bad blood between him and Alex, where it's like you see Owen being cut from Crowder and there doesn't seem to be any bad blood there. Like, it was a business decision and it doesn't seem to have affected friendship in any way. But the Jones and Rogan thing, and that's why I think Rogan is still trying to, almost like a plausible deniability. Like, I think he's trying to maintain it as if he isn't throwing him under the bus and, you know, not standing up for his friend, while still saying the in remarks. Like you said, it's like he's been trained. That was very well rehearsed statement.
Yeah,
I mean, that was like political talk. Like that was
very
like
similar to Pete's and very similar to this asshole Russell Brand. Him and Russell Brand will probably get on like a house on fire. We need socialism, the good kind of socialism. And I've got millions and millions, but I'm not going to give it to anyone. Yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan keeps going on about socialism and helping and how good he is. How much is Joe Rogan actually worth? How much do you reckon he gets per podcast? 70 grand per podcast he's getting, isn't he?
Probably. It's probably something ridiculous.
70 grand per podcast, I think it is. And that's just for an average one. God knows what he got for Mike Tyson and stuff like that.
It says his net worth is 25 million.
Right.
But that is net worth, so I mean it could be more.
What's he done? What's he known for doing? What people has he helped? What causes has he set up? Remind me which ones he's done?
Yeah. Well, I mean it's the problem is these leftists, like, I see this attitude in people all the time where, like, they think taxes are their charity. And that's why they lobby for socialism and everything like that. Because the more money the government takes from them, the better a person they feel like they are. As long as they're okay with giving the money. But given the chance, if it were optional, they wouldn't give shit. And that's the fucked up part about them. Is that it needs to be taken, and then they're going to convince themselves it wasn't taken. They willingly gave it because it's a good thing they're doing, but they would never consider not paying
I'm
it.
pretty pissed because I promoted Joe Rogan pretty hard. Now I just feel embarrassed by that. So I even got a Joe Rogan t-shirt I used to wear. Like, try and meet like-minded people. And it's just like that community's fucked now. And then it wasn't just that in the podcast. Everything they were talking about was just like, maybe once the curtain's pulled back, you just need to go all out, don't you?
Well, I'll tell you what, that was my thought when I was like, who's on it? And you were like, New York Times reporter. And I'm like, that was my thing where I'm like, wow, now he's just in I don't give a fuck mode. Like, he got called out, so it's like, alright, the curtain's been pulled back, might as well just bring in the big guns to set the record straight. Because I was like, what else are they going to talk about? Like, they're going to address fake news and you know, present the party line, basically.
And how Trump is dividing people and it's caused a civil war. I heard that come up. And it's just a verbal civil war.
Yeah.
Now.
I knew that's what that was. I was like, this.
And then she went, look at Hungary and Poland, how racist they are. I was like, what?
Well, and that's the thing. I heard her say, you know, when she was talking about the hollowing out of words, she goes, you know, what do we do? What do we use to describe this rising far-right blood and soil attitude in, you know, all these countries and spreading across the world? And I'm like, what? Like, the Fourth Reich is rising? What are you talking about? Like, there's, like, it is nationalism versus globalism. This is not some, like, nouveau Aryan race, like, reprised bullshit. Like, what the fuck?
I've been doing a bit of research, bro. Do you want to hear about the rabbit hole I went down?
Sure.
You might need Google already. Been researching a lot more into the OTO. Because I just think that is the foundation of everything. Whenever you watch that documentary, they sold their soul for rock and roll. I think all the stories are true, but they're talking about the OTO and PHLEMA. You ever come across a guy called Sabafi Sevi?
It sounds really familiar.
Sabafi Sevi was like a Jewish rabbi, and he convinced about 50% of the Jewish population, which is quite an achievement, 50% of them, that he was the Messiah. And what he said, what he preached, was that because we're all fallen, we're all, you know, we're not perfect, we all sin, you may as well just embrace it. And he came up with the idea of redemption through sin. So just do whatever you want, like fuck what you want,
wow.
Fuck kids, sacrifice kids. And that became 50% of the Jewish population.
Well, and the thing I was going to say is, you know...
Bring him up, it's called Sabafi Sefi. If you start off there on Google, just so your viewers can get a background. He claimed to be the Messiah. 50% of the Jews were buying it. And this is what I think all the Jews! I think this is where this is coming from. And then, so a lot of the Jews obviously opposed this big time. They're like, you guys are insane. So then, what happened in 1666? So think about that for a number. In 1666, this guy called Jacob Frank, you might want to put Jacob Frank into Google in 1666.
That's who came up with Sevi. But one of the things I just wanted to add real quick before we get more into this history stuff about it is, you know, even with the thing I was saying about the meditation and the emptying yourself and laying the sort of demonic forces in, like, even if this guy came out and you get people, 50% of people convinced into a mindset that you can find redemption through sin, and even if he comes out to not be proven to be the Messiah, that is still a big demon to let in, to let go of. Like, you're not going to...
It could be seeing society collapse and the idea of being what we're doing now, really. You just think, well, fuck if it's the Messiah, but I want to fuck some kids, bro. So it could be a mixture of that, just that people want to be, what's the word I'm looking for, where everything just dissolves into, just comes to degenerate.
I mean, that's basically like...
But then you get to 1666, and that's when Frank Jacob pretends to be the reincarnation of Sabafi Sefi. That was 1666. And he went to Germany, to Bavaria, and that's where he met up with that Alex Weinshurst, whatever his name was, the guy who came up with the Illuminati.
Oh, Weinhop or whatever?
Yeah, let's get his actual name, let's pay him his dues.
Weishaupt or something like that.
Yeah. Find him now for you. Yeah, this Jacob Frank guy seems to be where it all kicked off. And then what the first thing that they were going to do was to take over the Masonic lodges one by one. But let me just quickly find this guy's name and I'll get back to the story. Because I do remember the name, I'm just shit at pronouncing stuff. So
well, yeah, it's interesting. When you see the picture of Jacob Frank on his deathbed, it does look very Masonic. From the hats and everything else.
Can we just find this Alex guy's name? Because we need to get it right. We've got to be accurate in our... We got to at least get his fucking name right. Why can't I find it? This should be easy.
Adam Weishaupt.
Yeah. So he was known for creating the Illuminati. That was 1666. And their first mission was to take over the Masonic lodges, and then the Vatican and so forth. And 100 years later is where you get all this, obviously 1776 kicks off. So I just thought that was really kind of interesting, that it all seemed to have kicked off with this Sabathi Sevi. And that's where a lot of our degenerate society probably comes from.
Yeah.
The idea that redemption through sin, just do whatever you want, do what thou wilt, sounds very much like the Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
It probably explains the Jewish hatred. Because 50% of the Jews were probably like, fuck this too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Crowley, there's like a handful of influences there. Like, he also, what I thought was interesting that...
I think I've sussed Crowley out. So they don't let me down Aleister Crowley.
Well, I was going to say, with Crowley even, like, he was, he studied Buddhism for a while, and I was thinking about it, even Owen, when he was doing a stream recently, he mentioned Buddhism, and he made this remark about, who can sit around, like, it was almost like a slight at Sam Harris, but talking about Buddhism in general, where he was like, who can sit around in the fucking mountains and get fat by just sitting there meditating and, like, just not doing, like, want to talk about privileged, like, that's who can do that. Like, how do you think these Buddhists got so fucking fat? Like, and that was his basic take and joke on it. But, like, I was thinking about that, where I was like, is that really a mindset of, like, gluttony and just, like, indulgence?
Well, I was listening to the OTO talk, and what they always say, they talk in riddles. They go, well, when you join the OTO, you do your rituals, and Christians, by their standards, would call it immoral. Stuff we do, Christians would say it's immoral. But they don't say what the immoral stuff ever is.
Yeah.
Which is key. So you know that what road this is going down. Like, if you were talking about what you did as rituals, you would just say, oh, we sacrifice a cat. That's as bad as it gets. But if you're just saying, oh, it's just stuff that Christians would find immoral by their standards, are we talking about, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Like, Christians would find paedophilia unacceptable, for example. So I just got creeped out. It's like it definitely invites these kind of people in. And then with Aleister Crowley, started going down that rabbit hole and actually looking at his life a bit more differently. 100% this guy was MI5.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Well, he was at their point the I want to say Parsons, but it's not Parsons. Who's the one
Jack Parsons. Yeah, it does get into Jack Parsons.
He in the rituals in California, but no, I'm talking about the oh my god, he had a place right, Timothy Leary. That's who I'm thinking of. It's like sort of like how music, how I point out you've had this succession of, like, Prince do a gimmick, Marilyn Manson does a gimmick, Lady Gaga does a gimmick, and it's the same, or Bowie's thrown in there too, but it's like those artists all come out with this freak show kind of androgynous bullshit, one after another, after another, after another. You sort of have had Crowley, Leary, Rogan, like the intelligence, the hippie movement at Laurel Canyon. Charles Manson was one of these people where, that's one that I've always found very interesting, because he was, in the 60s, he was friends with all the famous kids. Mover and Groover, in with all the right people. All the studios, about to be put out by the guy producing the Beach Boys and all that.
And you've got Roman Polanski, who's doing all the satanic stuff.
Yeah, and then
makes a film about sacrificing a baby from a pregnant woman. It's satanic cult, which is exactly what happened to his wife when he happened to conveniently be away.
Yeah, and then you have Manson end up as a fall guy, and he starts talking all of this, you know, they're going to start
I'm
a
not
race
saying
war.
Manson
It's
was
going
a
to be
fall
the
guy. I'm not going to go that far. But I don't know, maybe he was, but he probably was a fucking lunatic.
yeah. But you know, they're
Well, the Process Church, it all came out of that, and that had close links to the OTO.
but you
And that
have
goes
Manson
straight back to
talking all
Jack
of this stuff
Parsons.
that's
Jack
basically
Parsons.
come true in modern days, where he was obviously
Damien
clued into
Eccles
something.
hung around there straight after he got out of jail. But we're digressing a lot. I want to get back to Aleister Crowley. So
All right.
Aleister Crowley, intelligence service. So the reason he got picked up when he was in university, don't quote me, I think he went to Cambridge. And his grades were shit. Fuck knows how he got into there. But he became doing intelligence. And it started off because he was quite occultic and into drugs. So in those times, the only people that would, it's not like you had YouTube back then, just to get hold of an occultic book, it's probably impossible. So the niche of people doing that is going to be the high niche of society.
Yeah.
So it's almost like what you see with the Beatles, with Page, with Bowie. He would throw these wild parties where anything goes. And it's very hush-hush. And it seems to be very, like the OTO and the Hollywood scene they go together. It's very hush-hush, you keep it quiet.
Yeah.
And it's very degenerate. Anybody's parties, like Eyes Wide Shut parties are real, and that's how they keep it quiet. Because part of the OTO is all about secrecy. So I don't know if I'm explaining that too well, but that's where it started in England. And then he ends up going to Germany and becoming like a double agent for Germany. And then he goes to America as an agent and gets picked up. Like the first people to pick him up off the boat, I can't remember his name, but he was American intelligence. And the American intelligence, the FBI have actually got files on Aleister Crowley because they were going to the British going, do you want us to pick up Aleister Crowley for you? Because I don't know if you know, but he's writing some pretty anti-Churchill, anti-British, basically pro-Nazi material for the Germans. And the British wrote back going, nah, you're good, he's doing that for us.
Nah.
So he was in America doing that kind of stuff. So he's blatantly an agent all the time. And then Jack Parsons, the guy who was doing the OTO talk, was saying that Jack Parsons' wife is still alive. And she's basically one of the heads of the OTO. And they still use his house as one of the party venues. Like his house was always like notorious for...
Well, and you know what this piece makes sense of is that, you know, when you look into the sort of mainstream narrative
And then
on
Jack
Crowley,
Parsons was hanging around with Scientology dude, what was his name, Ron Hubbard.
yeah,
And Ron Hubbard is very much the same kind of thing, the spacey age. Not a million miles away from the OTO, is it?
well,
really?
I'll make a point about that in a second, but the thing I was going to say is about the mainstream narrative of Crowley, and this intelligence angle makes complete sense of it, is they describe him as a person who is relatively always poor, but like you said, into this sort of top-level niche stuff where, you know, finding books would probably be pretty costly and everything like that. And then they talk about his travels, and you're like, wait, you're making this guy out to be like he lives like some sort of satanic monk who's very poor and sick all the time. But yet, how is he traveling the globe, like, at such low resources in that day when, you know, I assume travel was more expensive and things like that. He's going all over the place. Learning with monks.
I just found it, and then I started looking into what Aleister Crowley had to say about his first book. And he meets that girl and takes her to Egypt, and that's where he writes the book. It seems like a make-believe fantasy story. I don't know why the OTO are taking it so seriously. It sounds like it's fictional. And it's meant to be fictional.
Yeah. All right, let me go on my tear about the you talking about Ron Hubbard real quick and the cosmology stuff, the space stuff. It's because I was thinking about it with Owen talking about, you know, I don't want to believe in a flat Earth and everything like that. I was watching some videos on both sides and stuff, just, you know, seeing what new materials are out there. And, you know, there's one video where they point to all of the people who have sort of given us this cosmology of sorts, you know, the scientists and Copernicus and all of them. And of course it's all pictures of them doing like the hidden hand, Masonic gestures and things like that. And, you know, the Masons are, you know, pretty blatantly like a sun-worshipping...
Well, maybe not. Maybe it was legit, but as soon as Sabathi said, well, Frank Jape and that Alex dude started taking it over, maybe the teachings changed.
That could be true. But what I was going to say is you basically have one of these, you know, sun-worshipping sort of pseudo-pagan, you know, religions that can be found. Like, look at it like this. The whole beginning part of Zeitgeist is this idea that all of the religions are as, like, astrology personified. Jordan Peterson talks about similar thing, about the narratives that are woven through all of them. It's all that sort of all the religions, Bill Maher's religious list, all that stuff being one. And the thing I was thinking about is, like, if that were to be true, like, how amazing would it be that this Illuminati or whatever, you know, Illuminati being the light, like the sunlight, that they put it out where I have friends of mine who, like, will entertain any conspiracy theory except flat Earth. Because the implications are with flat Earth, of course, that the Earth is the center of everything, and everything else revolves around the Earth, and we are under this firmament, and this is sort of all there is, so you should be dealing with yourself on this plane rather than looking off into the cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson fondling a titty or something. You should, like, so they get these people on both ends where it's like,
this is a wild conspiracy. You can't have children believe in this. You
right?
Go with, what about science?
Like,
Jamie?
there are people who
This
will...
is dangerous. I don't want my kids thinking this.
I know. God forbid. They better be
It's
dreaming of living on
racist.
Mars.
That's not
Global warming is going to
racism,
send your
Jamie.
children to Mars, and they will build a new future on another planet because global warming. But no, they have these people where it's like a double-ended cosmology thing where it's like, friends of mine will say, religion is all just sun worship, it's a, you know, pseudo-cult, bad for you, this, and that, because, you know, 9/11 was an inside job and everything else, and, you know, all other conspiracies are fine, and religion sucks. And then these people who will know the government lies to them and everything like that will believe all of this outer space, NASA, we've been to the moon, and everything else, where it's like you are essentially believing in the same sort of sun and solar worship, but from a science angle rather than a faith religious angle, because they've played these two out and sort of interwoven the two and just have sold it on two ends, and people will completely reject it on the one end and buy into a hook, line, and sinker on the other, and not think twice about, like, the government's involvement and things like that.
This is where the Aleister Crowley story gets insane. Because apparently Aleister Crowley was in with the Nazis, and that's where they got a lot, they used him as like an occultist
Guru.
You know, like guru, basically, like a go-to. And he went to them, guys, if you want the secret, if you want the fucking secret, right, do you know what you got to do? You know what you got to do?
Sacrifice children.
You got to get to Antarctica, mate.
Oh.
Because Antarctica's where it's at. So that's what he told the Nazis. And the Nazis actually did these massive expeditions, I found out. I don't know if this is true, man. This could be total bullshit, but it seems to be pretty watertight. Aleister Crowley told them that there were these underground caves in
Agartha, the inner earth.
Antarctica, yeah. And that became the religion of the Nazis, that the Aryan race actually came from these underground caves where they'd survived you know, the wipeout from previous civilizations. So the Nazis actually went to Antarctica and built up bases there. And when they lost the war, then the US Navy went there to get the Nazis out. It was called Operation High Jump. And that was in 1947 by Richard E. Byrd, who's quite a famous admiral. And they got the fuck out of there. They got to Antarctica and just got the fuck out.
Well, and
America went there fully pumped. Like, it wasn't like a small operation. It was
they were doing
of
interviews and stuff about it.
Yeah, and they were like, fuck, and that's where they think the secret space programs are going on. And Antarctica seems to be a place where everyone, it is the New World Order. You've got Russia being friendly
Yeah, they
with
all
Nazis,
agree
you've
on
got
no one
Nazis
can go
being friendly
there.
with the Americans. And they're just there to help out penguins, apparently.
Yeah.
So they're just there to help out a couple of penguins.
Yeah, it's really interesting, all this stuff
And
about Antarctica and how nothing flies over it, and basically everyone's agreed no one can go there except if you're officially allowed to go there. Like, I remember, I think it was Obama's vice president, or maybe it was John Kerry or one of them, made a trip down there for some reason. Like, they said he was going, they just didn't say why. But, you know, one of the things I wanted to add in was just that...
Quickly, just before you finish, type this into Google. It's Victor Romeo India Lima Frill. And that's the thing that Hitler really brought into. That's what the society was called, the German Society of Frill. And it came from underground. Victor Romeo India Lima Frill Society.
One of the things I was going to say is, you know, that sort of...
Aleister Crowley and the OTO get everywhere, bro.
Yeah, and that...
You've got to think that NASA, it's all come out of that. Nazis and OTO.
I'm not finding
The
it.
Nazis really, they got a lot of their ideology, apparently from Aleister Crowley. Because they were occultic, like the Indiana Jones stuff's quite accurate as far as that's concerned.
Well, the thing I was going to say is, you know, the idea of the whole caveman, you know, Aryans coming from caves and things like that. That's sort of the thing, you know, that you hear some of these black supremacists...
It's in Wikipedia. If you type in occultism and Nazism in Wikipedia, it says Aleister Crowley, like jump to Aleister Crowley. This is Wikipedia, man. A Guardian, Aleister Crowley and a Guardian. Oh my God.
But you have, that's why some of these black supremacists will use insults and say, you know, white people are cavemen or cave beasts, because it's part of that. And I've seen things where there's an article debunking the idea that Nazis were a Christian group, and it shows them having like pagan solstice rituals. I mean, they use the term pagan, but it was occultic. I mean, it's so weird that people present Hitler as having a coherent mindset and plan and things like that, because I mean, there were times where it's like, he was like Owen Benjamin, I hate to keep bringing him up, but I really love what things he's been talking about lately. When he talked about Hitler and he compared him to that guy on Game of Thrones, Kalini or something like that, and he talks about it just being this evil that wants to rape and pillage and conquer. I mean, Hitler was aligning with Islam at points in times to you know, work together on things, and it's all this just sort of Black Death, Nazism merged with Islam, merged with Satanism, like because it all just coincides with evil and darkness.
That was a rabbit hole I went down. I don't know if I explained it well. It's hard to do without pictures and documents, but Aleister Crowley was intelligence. He did get in with the Nazis, and then with the Americans. He's got a real strong relationship with Jack Parsons, and really obsessed with Antarctica. And this could be where all this crap comes from, and everyone goes, oh, the occult's complicated. It probably is just redemption through sin.
Yeah.
Like, you're falling here, you're just here for a temporary amount of time, so just fuck shit up. And that kind of explains a lot of what we've seen over. I mean, the OTO in culture is just through the roof. And I mean, people, like, I noticed it with Jimmy Page's birthday, because I'm a big guitar player, obviously. So on all the Gibson pages, like I like Gibson Les Pauls, all of them had Jimmy Page, and I'm like writing on it, but wasn't he a pedo? And like, yeah, he was. Like, it's well documented. And his obsession with Aleister Crowley, when people go, it's a myth that he put backward messages in, it's like, do you not know anything about Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole entertainment industry, like, I mean, it's, I really, shouldn't phrase it like this, but 9 times out of 10, I'll say, if there's a wild conspiracy about the entertainment industry, whether it's Justin Bieber's actually, you know, born a female and transitioned to being male, or Michael Jackson lived out a couple more years as Dave, the burn victim, or Paul McCartney's dead and we've just got his body double running around for the past couple years, Eminem being a body double, like, I believe this shit.
To fake an autopsy, though.
I believe this shit. I don't know. I've seen things though where
the thing with Michael Jackson, they 100% killed him.
I see
like
things.
Conrad Murray killed him.
There was a video going around online where it's like some of these high-profile autopsies, they have like the same names on them, like ones you wouldn't think would. I don't remember the video.
You couldn't make up the Conrad Murray story. I don't think you could. I don't think they're that skillful. It was such a believable story that he was that sloppy at killing him. And
I don't know. I mean, Michael definitely thought they were after him.
Accident.
But I said there's tapes that came out of Michael thinking they were after him, but who knows? Maybe they made the tapes. Maybe they are cloning them. Who the fuck knows? I mean, it's really...
Well, the CCTV's gone. And Michael Jackson would have been obsessed with CCTV in that house.
Yeah, especially at the point where he said he wasn't drinking the water because he thought they were trying to poison him. I mean, you would at least have cameras. But, I mean, the entertainment industry is so fucked. I mean, I think it really is just to bend a warped perception. It seemed like
Michael Jackson was really struggling with turning up to do the rehearsals. Like, it was going very, very badly. And in the 2 days he picked it up is where they picked up all that footage for This Is It. And as soon as they got Michael Jackson looking in good shape again, that's when they finished him off. So they would have to video him going, oh look, it's such a shock, such a surprise. But like,
yeah.
And you got to remember, they insured that guy for a drug overdose, which is crazy. I think he's the only person in history to be insured on the chance of an overdose, because that's deemed self-inflicted.
Yeah, you gotta have wild money to take out that sort of insurance.
I don't think it's ever happened. And then the way they set him up to go, look, Michael, do 10 shows. And he's like, okay, I could probably just about do 10. And then it's like, it's 50. It's like, he knew he couldn't do 50, man. And I think they all knew that he couldn't do 50, and it was just an insurance scam for Sony. Just to sell all these tickets, get all the tickets insured, and then when it all falls through, everyone gets paid out.
Well, and plus the other thing too is, I mean, they were able to end the King of Pop on a high, sad note, and like you said, milk it with just albums coming out, and you know. The tour, and it's like, it wasn't like Prince where he kind of just went quietly in the middle of the night. There wasn't any rumbling.
Prince was very similar to Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Where they went out.
Well, and it's interesting too how you have similarities in certain cases, whether it be Prince and Michael or like Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington. Like, it's almost
the
like...
thing with the Chester Bennington and Anthony Bourdain, I think it was Hillary Clinton, because they were hung. And that's what you do when you're a Masonic. That's the ritual. They put a rope around you, say, if you say anything, this is what's going to happen to you. We're going to hang you.
Yeah.
And the way it was done with precision, I think that's a message, man. How many people were found hanging that were famous? You had the Soundgarden dude.
Yeah.
Chris Cornell. Chester was found hanging. Anthony Bourdain was found hanging. And Bourdain was into some shit, man.
Yeah. Definitely was.
I mean, that's what's turning into
Christianity. It's, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I think about it, again, like I mentioned earlier, being a fan of like comic book media, it's very much like the villain leaving a message, like you said, like a calling card, like the Joker leaving the playing card, like having them all hung. And I think some of them, like one of them was like hung on a doorknob or something like that. It wasn't even like hung from anything high. Like,
expert executioner, yeah.
But yeah, Bourdain, that's the interesting one, because he was starting to get loud, and then he was taken out. And then the whole weird thing with his girlfriend afterwards, with the Me Too stuff, where she tried to make a come up off it, drag him into it. Next thing you know, she's getting accused of, like, coming on to underage boys.
Far too many rabbit holes. But yeah, I wish I and Benjamin would get on to Aleister Crowley.
I think it'll come eventually.
Why are people so obsessed with him and say he's such a great guy? I don't get it. It's like, okay, don't go by how he lived. Go by what he wrote. Like, what?
What he wrote was how he was living. Like, that's his philosophy. Like, I mean, it's not like, for someone to try to sell you someone like that almost basically implies that they're trying to make them out like a hypocrite. Like, don't go by what they did, go by what they said. And it's like, that's the worst kind of person to model your...
Yeah, the best ritual is an intelligent young boy. Blood sacrifice is the best, but dangerous. It's like I was talking about wanking. It's like, well, before that he said sacrifice an animal, or you're not... You're kind of wrong. I don't get how you get that's masturbation. I've read it so many times.
Yeah.
About the sacrifice. I don't get how that's masturbation. And then some of it is like very homosexual. I don't understand how it became... Apparently Aleister Crowley was the guy that made the OTO homosexual. And one of the rituals is about a rocket. So, I mean, I'll give you a guess how that ends. Oh, yeah.
I mean, well, that was the thing, like, you know, it's like...
This is why you might see this massive rise in homosexuality as well.
But it's also the thing, you know, with the Nazis too, where, you know, they get painted out as being anti-gay, but
they weren't fucking each other up the ass.
No, but if you read the accounts of the SS and stuff, they were, because the thing they said is they found that it was the masculine homosexuals were the most vicious. They were just the cold-blooded killers of the group, and they went after the effeminate ones. That was the thing, where there was a distinction drawn between the gays, where, I mean, Hitler would show up to see the SS officers, and he would find boys under their beds hiding. Like, they would be pants down in the middle of orgies, and he was like, I don't care, because this is my murder squad. Like, let them do whatever on their free time. They will fucking rip your throat out with their teeth. Like, fuck that. I need them. Like, it's like, then that's the thing I was describing with the sort of Islam, Hitler, the satanic aspect. It's all based in this sort of carnal predator pleasure through pain, like, but the pain of others, and it's like demonic. Like, the words that you use to describe it start to sound so cliche because they almost oversimplify it, but it's just pure evil. Like, that's the only way to really look at it. And it, like you said, I know the things you're talking about with Crowley, where it's like ridiculous stuff about just, you know, it's the stuff you see in Abramovich, like just this sort of like drink the blood milk from the semen stain, like crazy bodily fluid indulgences, and I don't know. It's like I was watching the Punisher TV show yesterday, and there's one part where a Marilyn Manson song is playing, and I just hear this voice. I'm at work doing other stuff, and I hear this voice in the background just going, "You say God, I say Satan. You say God, I say Satan. Satan." And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this would be something that someone would be like, I found a hidden message of some satanic shit in a Marilyn Manson record, but that's just the fucking song. Like, it is just, and I was like, oh my god, I was a fan of this? Like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is just, like, low IQ evil for the sake of, I don't even know, just retire. Like, fuck, I was so disgusted. Like, it wasn't even like, you know, you could have, you want to write a song about Satan, go for it and make it something eloquent and, like, at least try to get artsy with it. But this is just ugly.
That's where I'm getting confused in my life at the moment, because I'm completely on the same page that the planet's obviously run by Satan, by evil, whatever you want to call it, evil. It's out of control.
Yep.
But when you see Fox Day and Benjamin, they don't do anything to defend Christianity, really. Because I think the problem with Christianity is a couple of things. And if they can, like, debunk it, I'd love to hear it. But where I can't, like, get on board with it is the Immaculate Birth. Like, are they saying that that's real? And the coming back from the dead, like, what does that mean?
It's here, see, but this is the problem with it, is it's like, it almost like, let me put it to you like this. Immaculate Birth or resurrection would affect your lifestyle choices how? Like, if you lived your life as a Christian, if you live your life as a Christian, the details of Immaculate Birth and resurrection don't affect the lifestyle choices and the sense of morality and the everything like that. And this is what I think happens, is I think people, you know, just sort of see through observation. Like, even myself, as I get older, and I constantly, you know, I go to the defense of the old lady fighting cancer, finding faith through God. Like, how is that harmful to her? How is that doing anything but negative? But you really do see these earthly indulgences and sin and things that tend to lead people down really dark paths. You see that Christianity, in a pragmatic sense, sort of poses an antidote to it. And I think people see that, adopt the sort of Christian lifestyle outlook, belief structures, and sense of morality, and then through that, I think they find the faith to believe in Jesus and that he was the one that came to show us this way. And I honestly think the sort of, I feel like you're posing it like, you know, the make or break first step has to be resurrection and, you know, Immaculate Birth. But I think for, like, Christians who consider themselves saved, I think finding faith in those two things is at the very end of the list. Like, I think they are really just coming from it as this lifestyle, this outlook, this ideology has benefited my life so well and has just brought me so much joy and happiness through the small things like family. And, you know, even Gavin McInnes talks about how he loves going to church because he feels like it's a place to just reflect on how thankful he is for life itself and how that's a gift. So, and I think through really feeling that and finding that, that's where people say, you know what, I'll take the leap of faith that, yeah, the Immaculate Birth and resurrection, because this got it right with everything else, so might as well. But I don't think it's like you know what I mean? Like, it's not the deciding factor. I think it's just the tacked on at the end of it, where it's like
that's what puts me off being a Christian. That's the only thing, really. And I imagine I'm probably the same as a lot of other people. I'd like to hear. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's no resources to really go to, but there are good.
You know what you should check out? There's a movie, actually, that I watched, and it's based on a true story called God's Not Dead. And now the story basically goes like this. You had a atheist journalist husband and his wife, and one night they're out to eat. They might have had their kid with them. Yeah, I think they had a kid. They're out to eat at a restaurant, and the kid starts choking on something. This black woman comes over and performs the Heimlich because the kid was about to pass out. You know, is there a doctor in the building? The woman comes over, saves the kid. The woman then turns to the wife and says, you know, my husband and I were going to go somewhere else to eat tonight, but God told me I needed to be here. Like, I knew for some reason this was where I should be. And, you know, I didn't do anything. God saved your son, basically. Like, she chalked it up to a divine intervention, basically. And then the wife started, you know, became interested, I guess. It piqued her curiosity, so she called the woman, got in touch with her, and she was like, I thought about what you said, this, and that, and it basically led the woman to religion, and, but the woman even, it just seems like she just, like had the feeling at church that Gavin had. These people are thankful to be here. They've experienced something that they feel, this saved them from, and stuff like that. So anyway, the husband's irate about it. He's like, my son's science and reason and logic and evidence, and we aren't raising our kids to be religious, and I fuck your friend and your community, and this, and that. So it starts causing a lot of friction between their relationship. But one of his journalist friends goes to him and says, listen, if you want to get your wife off of this crazy shit, how about you make a case like you would for an article? Because this is when journalism was real. And not fake news. But he says, build a case that you cannot deny that these stories in the Bible are just nonsense. Like, nonsense. So he attempts to do it. And he goes and sees psychologists and theologians and experts. And, I mean, there's one part I remember particularly. I watched another movie I watched at work one night, where he's interviewing, like, a psychologist of sorts. And he's talking to her about the resurrection. And he's like, the idea of a resurrection is crazy, this, and that. And the woman adds on this remark where she says, well, actually, she said, the idea that thousands of people had the shared hallucination that, days after being crucified, Jesus walked again, that all these people had all this identical account, and that it wasn't real, and it was just some shared joint hallucination. The idea that that many people had that happen is actually far less probable than the resurrection itself. Like, the idea that it's just this joint hallucination or something, like, that's far more unlikely than the dead walking again. And just things like that, the idea that there are historical figures we all accept as fact, like Alexander the Great, and there are less documents based on him than people like Jesus Christ, and a lot of the history. And the overall movie is really good. By the end of the story, though, the guy is like, he approaches his wife, he says, I tried to debunk this, I tried to really make an argument that this is all horseshit, and I can't do it. Like, I'm with you, I support you, I now see a factual, reason-based reason to believe what you are feeling. And he's then wrote another book about it, and ever since he's basically been like a Christian, a born-again Christian. Like, he didn't even, dip his toes in. He went right to being born again. Like, that Jesus Christ is everything, and through him we find salvation and stuff like that. I thought that was really interesting. One of the things someone talked about the other night, where he talked about not being able to say Jesus Christ, and that really got me thinking a lot about myself, and how comfortable people are praying to God. And I think part of it's political correctness and stuff like that, where, I think if people ask me, like, about God and things like that in a mixed crowd, I myself would be far more comfortable just using the name of God than Jesus Christ, that figure. Because, it's like the things you're saying. They've tacked on these miracles to him, which, I mean, creating the earth in 6 days is a fucking much bigger miracle than immaculate birth and being born again, like, or rising from the dead. Like, the whole thing is very miraculous and stuff like that.
Check what's in the news today. If you go on Google, this is in the news today. The rise of Satanism in America, Daily Mail article.
Really?
Just check it out, yeah, man. It's just weird. And it's an advert.
Well, and, I think they were.
It's not. And the thing is, they get into how Netflix has been giant in this. Like, every film from Sabrina. There's that new dance film, isn't there, that people told me not to watch, where they do like a ritual in it, a dance ritual, and they said it was really bad. You had the new Jack Black film where he was a warlock, and that's got real occultism in it. Like, the books in the background, the books he refers to are real books.
Yeah, I could tell for a while that Jack Black was a Satanist.
If you look at his Daily Mail article.
Yeah, I have it up on the screen.
fucking insane.
Well, and you know what else is crazy?
This is a promotion.
Remember the last podcast we did, I think, I found that article about the Church of Satan basically relocating and having a new headquarters in my hometown.
It's founded in 2012. Has chapters across the US and Europe. And they got a new documentary again. It's in Sundance.
Directed by Penny Lane. That's a BS.
All over Netflix. Netflix, every single thing's about witches now. Everything.
Well, and even on the CW, you have these shows about magicians and magician assassins, and Sci-Fi has a show about it. There's tons of black magic being supported in the media. But I mean, you kind of knew that was coming. It was sort of like how there was that phase of vampires being everywhere for a minute with Twilight and everyone hopping on that trend. Let's see. Is this documentary they're talking about, is this one going to be on Netflix?
It's always Netflix, yeah, probably.
I do not belong to these things belong to me. I do not belong to these things belong to me. I do not belong.
Oh my god, I'm sorry for that, everyone. I just had some pop-up go on, and it was someone in a cloak being like, I do not belong to Satan, Satan belongs to me. I do not, like, some weird... You know, and I was gonna say, you know, I really think they were hinting at this with all that stuff they were showing on the news about Trump and the witches, and a year later the witches do it again.
And... after-school programs by the Satanic Temple. So Daily Mail's got the promotion advert for... You scroll down, our advert for after-school programs by the Satanic Temple. We gotta check this video out, bro. This is some education. It's an advert. Go watch this video. Should we sign up, man? The thing is, does any of this look fun? When you look at the photos, going, oh, Jesus. Look at the people with the black flag. Who the fuck wants to hang out with those bunch of fucking dicks? But now, if you talked about Satanists and people, a couple of years ago, people were like, ah, nah, still. Satanism has definitely jumped the shark.
And fun. Oh my god.
And it's going, look, they help children, they're doing charity work, trying to help the environment. This is the best religion ever.
Are they actually saying something, or is this just really all sorts of fucked? Like,
oh, here we go. How do I put this? One member of the National Council says in Lane's documentary. She called for Donald Trump to be killed. That's obviously problematic. The fuck? They're talking about executing the president here as well. At one event at her Detroit chapter featuring pig heads shoved onto spikes, she shouted, "We are going to disrupt, distort, destroy and reclaim, resist and rebuild." Oh, this is a great group. "We are going to storm press conference, kidnap an executive, release snakes in the governor's mansion, execute the president." And this is being celebrated. Are you reading that? At one event at her Detroit chapter featuring pig heads shoved onto spikes. They're talking like this is a good idea. This is the way to do it. And President Trump is the one that needs to be stopped, not people putting pig heads on spikes.
well, and you know it's interesting. Paul Joseph Watson did a video about that Indian, protest thing in the news, and he had an image in there where it was a really good tweet saying, which thing do you think the media was outraged about this week? And it's one side, it's a photo of one of these drag kids next to a naked man. Now, mind you, this naked man is hunched over because if he wasn't hunched over, his fucking cock would be slapping the kid in the forehead. So you have this picture with this blur over this guy because he's naked next to a small child. Like, this is like, I mean, if any other role reversal, non-LGBT, whatever, handcuffs for everyone. But we give it a pass for this rainbow bullshit. And then on the other side,
they talk about how they've got to fight the law because being a satanic group, we're going to have to fight legal system so we can practice. That just makes me think, that ain't sound good. That means they're obviously breaking the law.
It says right here, the Satanic Temple, for example, is not afraid to take legal action when it feels its representations of Baphomet and other satanic icons are not accurate reflections of ethos and organization. When Netflix released its chilling new Adventures of Sabrina last autumn, for example, the show featured a goat-headed statue of Baphomet, very similar to a sculpture commissioned by the TST, which the temple contended was portrayed as evil. The Satanic Temple sued Warner Brothers and Netflix, and in November announced that it had amicably settled the lawsuit, which also resolved that the TST would be acknowledged in credits for pre-filmed episodes of the series. So they're basically consulting now. And think about how such a weaselly way that is to work your way into the media, where it's like, if anything touches this black magic shit, they can just say, oh, you're infringing on our copyrights, basically, and then they can get their grips on it and be like, oh, you need this in there, you need that in there, you need...
You had Christian Bale doing that thing as well, didn't you?
Yeah, at the awards.
Dick Cheney film.
Yep. He came out and right out said, Hail Satan.
And then another news article I came across, Bible site where God met Moses to be bulldozed for a super city. And there you go.
What?
Yeah. They really want to wipe out Christianity, that's for sure. You wouldn't see that kind of promotion for a Christian church. Look, why don't you join the Christian church? Look at all the good work they're doing. They believe in family and all this stuff. It's like, no, join this. This is much better. Pig's heads and blood and drinking blood and fucking everyone and having strange tattoos and looking like a freak.
Yeah. Site claimed to be where Moses received 10 commandments to be bulldozed for Saudi megacity. Real Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. You know, it's interesting, a lot of this stuff, you know, with them thinking that this stuff happened in Saudi Arabia and places like that, like, there's a lot of things, like I was saying before, about the idea that the Aryans and the Irish came from Iran, and that it's all found in the language of the like, Irish, Iran, Aryan, and it's that belief structure Hitler adopted, that's where civilization began, that's where Atlantis was.
Maybe that's why all the Satanists make themselves look so white.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know, man. Well, I hope I creeped you out enough.
Yeah. World's a dark place. That we knew. It's just, it like you were saying though, it's really disappointing with Rogan, and it's all getting so brazen. Where it's like,
I checked out BBC 3, so I haven't watched BBC in a long time. They had a documentary which was about the legal red light district in Leeds, and it's just so, it's what you expect, like the northerners of London, just, you know, £5 for sex, like just really, you know, smoking crack pipes and all this stuff.
yeah.
Kind of promoting it. So that was weird. And then it had the young people that are sterilising themselves and now following around these like 3 women and a guy that were going to sterilise themselves and going, they don't want children, ugh.
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting, like how you mentioned the prostitution thing, was there was a point people were making about places like Seattle and in the Midwest, where you're having these cities that want to set up safe heroin injection sites but ban vaping. And it's like, how is that how you're prioritizing things, where it's like, oh, heroin is all right as long as you do it in one of our facilities with a medical attendee there, but vaping, you know, an alternative to smoking, we got to stop that. Like, we can't have that going on. It's like, what, you just wonder what's going through these people's heads that these priorities are like this. But the thing I was going to say, you know, is that we're talking about things like, you know, Satanism, and it tied into all this dark stuff, but basically the carnal pleasures and do what thou wilt, and then tying that into Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson's all about that.
It's all the intelligence. I don't think it's real. I think it's just intelligence music to break up the family.
Could be. It could be, because it's everywhere. It is.
And then you've got the use of the blackmail that you never think it's an inside society.
Well, yeah, on a personal level, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all
it's
compartmentalized like everything else.
The point I'm trying to make is, like, where does it end? Like, and like how you're saying about, you know, looking at Christianity, it almost appears that, like, Christianity is like this island of purity, where it's like, you just don't know where else to look, because it's like, oh, well, if I watch a Supergirl show, I'm going to be hit with the feminist, anti-gun, you know, leftist programming. If I listen to Joe Rogan, I'm going to be given this do what thou wilt, you know, carnal pleasures, drugs and sex programming. Where's there to turn to? And it's like, you turn to people like Alex Jones and Owen Benjamin, and even both of them at this rate are like, God, please help us, like, Lord, you know, turn to Jesus. Everything, like, it looks like this island of safety when everything else is looking influenced by so much darkness. Like you were saying, the documentary about those who sold their souls for rock and roll, like that interview with Bob Dylan, bone chilling every time you watch it.
Because Led Zeppelin was more, just when I didn't realize just how blatant they were.
Yeah, but see, Bob Dylan, when he was asked that question on 60 Minutes, he doesn't appear, like, he doesn't flinch. It doesn't seem like he's lying. He is just like, I made a deal years ago, you know, with the ruler of this world and the one below.
But that's how you get to music. It's like, how do people control the music industry? It's through the occult. Like,
yeah.
You've got to go to these crazy parties to know people. It's who you know, remember? And that's all compartmentalized. I'm sure what you're seeing in the Daily Mail is the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Still, that's pretty degrading. God knows what the top's like once, like, the top of the top. It's like Scientology. You don't know all the degrees when you first go in. Got to earn your way up there. Same with Masons, things.
Yeah.
Then well, the OTO are Masons in many ways. Like, the OTO is the higher essence of. It's a shortcut to a 33rd degree, I think.
Well, and I think, you know, like, I was joking with a friend recently because we were listening to a podcast and they were talking about, like, female celebrities being walked around, like, executive offices naked. And it's like, it is like these embarrassment rituals. And I was talking to my friend being like, could you imagine, like, if when Taylor Swift switched from country to pop, they were like, yeah, we'll make you a pop star, you know, just come to the office, take off your clothes, put on this leash, you're going to hop on the table, squat on it like a dog, and take a shit, and then you're going to eat it in front of all of us. And if she was like, yeah, but Beyonce does it, and look at where she is, and just videotape that shit, and then you got them for life. I mean, the embarrassment rituals that they must have people doing. I think about that movie Salo about fascism in Italy, and it's just...
Oh my god. Fox Day has just started streaming and there's 666 people watching.
Yeah, that's...
Looks like someone's upset at Little Zealand tonight. Even though there's only 2 people watching. I don't know, I think maybe truth is the answer, I don't know, man, anymore. But I'm getting freaked out by all this Satanism, that there's not really any backlash at all.
Yeah, that's the troubling
And it explains what you see of the problems we've had with these transgender kids and showing up at strip bars and Amazing Desmond. It all goes hand in hand.
It all fits in viewing things through that prism, yeah, it pretty much does, where it's like, you know, do what thou wilt, like, you know, we'll be harming the kid by impeding his way. And I mean, think of it like this, really think of it like this. I mean, like, there were times, like, and I'll say it's like, I think of myself, like, you know, because I think I've said this before on the show, because I'm taller, skinnier, more limber, and, like, you know, gymnasty type when I was younger, like, if I played fighting games, I always identified more with the female characters than the brooding, muscular, masculine ones. I grew up in a house of all women. There was a Halloween once as a kid where I wanted to go as Catwoman. Now, did my mom stand in my way? No, my grandmother made me the costume, and I went out as Halloween one year as Catwoman. But it's Halloween. Now, I think if I was a kid growing up nowadays, and I had these progressive parents, I mean, could you imagine the hell that could turn into, where a little boy wants to dress up as a female villain character he likes for Halloween? Next thing you know, you're dancing in a strip club for dollar bills at 8 years old? I mean, imagine when they're 25 trying to get an office job, and they're like, aren't you the amazing Desmond? Like, what if this phase doesn't last forever? Could you imagine how embarrassing that would be for an adult to look back at themselves at 8 years old and be like, I was twerking for grown men, dressed up in drag, putting dollars down my pants, and my parents didn't stop me. Like,
still not as bad as my CV, but it's not good. But yeah, the thing is, where do you go? So, okay, you gotta avoid the music industry. You can't listen to music anymore, watch a music video, because you think Satanists have got some incredible technology now with all this HD and stuff. And if I want to talk about Jack Black, do you remember when you was a kid? Like, I would like study films like a religion.
Yeah.
But the other thing, like, I don't want to digress too much, but I was gonna talk, like, you can't go into art and you think, okay, well, go into science then. Science will be a safe place to go, won't it? And you think all you hear about AI is they're talking about summoning the demon.
Or even like I was saying about the NASA space shit, it is
can't
still
even
this
go into
sort of
AI now.
cosmology of, you know, here's one of the things where I broke down the flat earth thing for a friend of mine, where I said, listen, I said, let's look at the world like this. I said, because there's this guy that calls up at our job, and he'll always want to go into these tears about, well, you know, we're just insignificant specks of dust in the concepts of the annals of space-time continuum of the cosmos, of infinite expanding voids of nothingness, and we're just nothing floating along in the evolved...
Infinite nothingness.
Infinite nothingness. Compare the infinite nothingness and that cosmology to flat earth, where we're in a dome, we're the center of everything. God put us here. We are here for a purpose. If anything, that purpose is just to watch over the animals and keep shit safe for however long. But the sun and the moon and everything is made around
You're
us.
getting away with the animals. Animals are more important than humans.
Well, that's the leftist sun, Gaia, God, earth worship nonsense. Is, you know, we are only harmful to animals. It's not like we've ever prevented anything from going extinct or, you know, anything like that. No, we're supposed to be protectors of the earth and live in harmony with the animals and everything. We're not supposed to be subjugated under them. They are subjugated under us. But I mean, just think of those worldviews, and it's like, which one is more optimistic and which one is more of a, well, nothing matters, do what thou wilt? Like, if we're meaningless specks of insignificant space dust and we're all just going to dissolve into particles and neutrons and, you know, everything, and decompose and reconfigure and, you know, all this sort of super science, astro-theological, theoretical bullshit, fucking rape a kid then. Why not? Whatever. It's all insignificant in the infinite nothingness. But if you're under the dome and you're being watched by the almighty above, you might think twice about
But that's the problem with Christians. They just can't embrace science.
I don't know. I
problem.
think plenty of them
They
do.
can't embrace the idea that there's this big bang that came from nothing, that made everything.
There's
and
plenty of people that
everything's
aren't
perfect
Christian
from that.
that Well, that's not scientific. Like, and even scientists say the thing, you know, you give us one leap of faith and we'll explain the rest, because they sort of acknowledge that the the Big Bang doesn't make sense and they can't explain it, and you know that there's holes in it.
Well, I was
stuff
told
like
that the speed of light was bullshit. And this guy I was talking to is like super intelligent, and he was like, Paul, it gets worse than that. Like, there's no such thing as speed of light.
You know what science I like? And this was the thing, same...
I went, what? And he went, and I thought, oh, so you mean it's different in Africa to here because of the light, the atmosphere? And it's like, no, it's worse than that. Sometimes light just changes because it feels like it. And I started Googling that,
well, we
and
know.
I was like, yeah, it's...
But here's the thing I was explaining to my friend that I was talking about all this stuff with, is, you know, we were talking about the stars and them being fixed and, you know, everything like that with the flat earth stuff. And one of the things he said was, he says, yeah, well, you know, it could also be because the stars are so far away and we're just seeing the afterburn, or, you know, whatever the common science explanation for starlight is. And the thing I said to him is, I said, here's what you don't realize, is that is fundamentally unscientific. And I said that because how can you test that? How can you experiment that? And how can you recreate that? Like, so much of this is so far away from the scientific method. And that's the thing. Most Christians don't have problems with setting up your hypothesis, doing an experiment, recreating that experiment, and drawing your conclusions from that. But as Nikola Tesla had quoted, I don't have the exact quote, but he had basically said that that sort of science, the hard science, the hands and you know, doing stuff science, has been replaced by frivolous math equations that are just like, I mean, that's why Neil deGrasse Tyson thinks Earth is shaped like a pear, because that's what the math equations say. You know, if we're spinning at this speed combined with this much gravity and it minus this much matter and, you know, this much in XY over divided by the size of the Earth on a Tuesday, pear-shaped. Like, and that's where these conclusions that are made simply out of equations have no bearing on reality, and there's no test, there's no recreation of the test, there's just the equations. And that's the thing, that's not science. And that's the stuff that you need to be wary of and try to stay away from.
But there's no way, you can't stay away from it. Like I said, you can't do anything art now, you can't do anything music, and you go, okay, well, I'll start working with computers. AI, everywhere you look, that's related to Satanism now. So you go, okay, maybe I'll go work for CERN. They look like a nice bunch of scientists, they won't be up to anything. It's like,
demon
run
worship.
again, can't
Yep.
go to CERN. So then you go to, like, I don't know, they do some food, like, you go to a drug company, like, okay, they're trying to kill everyone.
Yep, going to the media, they're trying to deceive everyone, and like, I even thought about the other day where a girl at work was we were talking about, you know, issues, and she made a remark. I was halfway out the door, so I didn't want to get into it, especially with guests and clients at the house. But she was like, you know, and our president trying to divide us. And I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, you know, the easiest question to probably ask a black person is to just go to them and say, when the media falsely reported that Donald Trump had Martin Luther King's statue removed from the White House, and really someone was just standing in front of it in a picture, when they ran with that fake news story, was that Donald Trump trying to divide people, or was that the media? Like, when the media plays this narrative out of this Indian man banging his drum in a kid's face, and the kid just stands there smirking, not saying anything, not doing anything, and they are trying to say that the kid is harassing and bullying, and this guy who walked up to him, who wasn't minding his own business, is somehow the victim, is that Donald Trump dividing people, or is that the media? Like, the media are the divisive ones, but as long as people believe what they're saying, they don't see it. Like, the easiest way, I put it to one coworker, and it just sort of clicked for her, is I said, you know, regardless of anything, I said, if, you know, I've heard for years the Republicans are corrupt, the Democrats are corrupt, the media is corrupt, Hollywood is corrupt. All of these institutions are corrupt, and they all come out in a choir singing, Donald Trump bad, Orange Man bad, take him down, get rid of him. I said, I kind of at least got to sympathize for the guy, because everyone that's an identified enemy is aligned against him. Like, and they all seem, and it's sort of where the WWF, like, wrestling aspect of things. This is why I don't understand Jesse Ventura lately, because Ventura has been very against Trump, but Ventura always talked about that, how politics and all of this was like professional wrestling, and everyone gets along behind the scenes, but they all hate each other in front of everyone. But then when you saw the people that are supposed to be hating each other joining together to hate someone else,
country and something dumb. Yeah, like I say, it's all out in the open now. There's not any. Everyone seems to be embracing it. It's just so. I just don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah. You know, I had it.
I don't think I could really.
I don't know if I told you this. I had it with one of my nieces where my sister was concerned at one point because they looked through her phone and they found all these, like, lyrics about suicide and slitting your wrist and, you know, this and that. And they you know, mentioned it to me, and my joke, like my sort of off-the-cuff joke was I said, well, you got to stop her from listening to music by guys in tight jeans wearing eyeliner. Like, you know, all this, like, emo, screamo, whatever music. And then, like, 2 days later, they came to me, and they were like, yeah, it turns out that it wasn't her writings. It was song lyrics from some band. And I said, yeah, my point exactly. You have to stop her from listening to these musicians with this messaging. And it's like, I'm saying the things that my mom said to me, trying to prevent me from listening to Marilyn Manson. Now I'm the one saying it.
Yeah, but
I feel like I can make a far better case.
It'd be better if you make the case, if you make it funny, where you go, you know that people say that music doesn't shape you or has no power. Just show them that all rappers look the same, all people into emo look the same.
Yeah.
It's like all rockers, they do look the same. Like.
Well, you know what's interesting about that? I think I might have said this on the previous podcast. Is that's what's also interesting about this whole gender nonconformity thing, is that as much as these people are trying to be special snowflakes, like you can look at this LGBTQ AIP whatever thing, and it's like when I used to go to hardcore shows, I dressed more emo. Brett dressed more hardcore, our guitarist was far more metal looking, and our drummer was more nu metal looking. And like, we all came together as a band, but we all kind of had our individual looks that represented the heavy music that we were more personally into. And that's like this gender shit where it's like, you can look at these people and be like, oh, you identify as gender queer because of your shaved head and your crazy makeup and your painted nails, or what, like guys with dangling hoop earrings. Like, I know you're gender non-conforming. Like, you know, it's this weird thing where it's like a scene with all these different looks and stuff where they're trying to
that's my excuse for saying, like, that's why I can't get a job. Like, in the UK, they're saying 50% of people, like 1 in 2, are on antidepressants. 1 in 2. So let's just face it, I'm not going to get on with that kind of person. I'm not saying I'm not going to get on with them, but it's not going to be a great relationship.
Yeah.
How many people have you got that are just... Like, most people out there are just completely insane.
You know, did you see, I don't know if you follow her on YouTube, remember Lindsay Shepherd? The girl in Canada who, she showed a Jordan Peterson clip, and next thing you know, she was in the center of a controversy where she recorded the thing. Well, she still does videos, and she did one the other day about the mental health crisis on college campuses, and basically how some of these schools, when you go to college, they're giving you these, like, mental health crisis bags, like, with a squeezy toy and a blankie and, like, all of this stuff to, you know, help them deal with their mental illnesses. And she's talking about how, like, you're in a high-stress environment, you have a lot on your plate. Like, if you were to feel depressed in these situations, it wouldn't be unnatural. In fact, it would be the called-for response. But yet they are pathologizing this and trying to tell these kids they have clinical depression. and putting them on drugs and everything else like that. Like, it's all becoming pathologized, where it's not that you are in the mindset as a result of your circumstances, you are clinically depressed or have an anxiety disorder.
I think the idea of depression came out of MK Ultra.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, I think it did too. The whole
I think it was a thing.
Who was it? The one guy, he co-hosts Alex Jones's a lot, and he has the room with all the boxes with like the butterflies or the critters. I forget. Oh my god. But he said in the one video, he said, psychology is the biggest psyop there is. And
psychiatry.
Psychiatry. Is the biggest psyop. Who said that? Was it John something maybe?
Yeah, because it gives you an excuse to get a patient and start fucking with their brain any way you want.
Yeah. Well, and even
green light.
I really hate to say this because, you know, he comes on the show every so often and stuff. But I'll tell you, even with Brett, I really worry about him sometimes because he went, you know, to the place I work at when he was in an abusive relationship because there are no battered men's shelters. So there's a place I was able to take him in. And then, you know, because of the things we do, like they help him with getting social services and things like that. But in order to get social services and assistance, you need a caseworker, you need to see a psychiatrist and everything else. So it's like almost to get help and on these welfare programs and stuff, you then have to buy into the psychiatry, psychology.
Then you'll get a bonus as well. Like, well, if you're depressed, you'll get this money.
If you're disabled, you will get assistance with this and that and stuff. Yeah, where it's almost monetarily incentivized.
Like, I really want to start dating and settling down. It's like, I can't see it happening. Like, the chance of the woman being on her antidepressants, massive. The chance of her already having a kid is massive. The chances of her just being just over-sexual would be massive.
Yeah, or they're just, you know, whacked out on drugs and stuff. Anyway, the point I was going to make with Brett, you know, they diagnosed Brett. Now, Brett's always been kind of odd, a little eccentric and everything like that, but they diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenic, bipolar, manic depressive, like this laundry list of things.
Right.
And it's like, let me tell you, Brett has endured some trauma, no doubt about it. Like, he has had traumatic things in his childhood. You know, I don't want to go giving out his business, but I will vouch for him if my word means anything. He's lived through some shit. He's also put himself through some shit. And so, I mean, there's issues that, you know, he probably does need to talk to someone about. But to throw that label on him and then have him on all these meds and everything else, like, me and friends are talking to him and we're like, he's not getting worse, he's getting better. Like, he's not getting better, he's getting worse. Like, he's more and more embodying this label that they've slapped on him. And we don't think it's us just becoming aware of it because it's been diagnosed. Like, we're all like, he seems like lost in his thoughts a lot, kind of rambles at times, and like, I don't know, but we're worried. Like, and I think that's what happens to people, where they think they're getting help, they believe these people. Like, I mean, Brett's wanted to get the flu shot. I was in the pharmacy the other day, and there's signs for it everywhere, and all I can think is, I'm like, so much marketing for a free product should really tell everyone something. Like, free things don't really need commercials and announcements in stores and giant, you know, things. Ask us today about this. Free shots, free flu shots at the Oscars or the Golden Globes. Free shots, vaccines for, like, if it's free, it normally will sell itself if it's something worthwhile.
I'm out there, bro. I can't take any more. Not looking good, is it?
No.
Do you want to go to Bulgaria? Just run away. Because, like, if we're going to do it, it's the last chance now. After this year, I'll be broke.
Yeah, I don't know where to
get
run
the fuck
to.
out of there.
Need to go somewhere. Somewhere that the devil hasn't taken a hold of. But, alright, well, I should have some dinner. It is getting late around here. But, alright, I'll talk to you Sunday. We'll do it again.
Alright.
Alright,
man.
take care.
Catch you in a bit. Alright, see ya.